Hi HR Nation, it's Chris Rainey. Welcome to HR Leaders, the show where we interview today's most successful and innovative HR practitioners 5 days a week. Today we're joined by Pablo Vercelli, Vice President of HR Europe at OI. Pablo, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm very well, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks,
How are
man.
you?
No, I'm good. I'm not getting much sleep, as I mentioned to you before the show, but I suppose that's what happens when you have a baby. Can't complain.
Good luck with
Pablo,
that.
you've had 3, Pablo, so I'm going to be calling you for advice over the next few months. Pablo, give our listeners a little bit of insight about yourself personally and your journey to where we are today.
So in a nutshell, not to bore everybody, I was born in Argentina many years ago. I came to Europe when I moved from HR to marketing and sales in 2001. And then after a couple of years learning the business from a different angle, I moved back to HR. I was missing my passion in HR. Lived in England, lived in the Netherlands, and we now live with a family in Switzerland. I joined OI, which stands for Owens, Illinois. It's the biggest global glass packaging manufacturer. I'm very happy in Switzerland 1 year and a half ago already.
Fantastic. And before the show, we were speaking about experiences outside of HR and talking about how that can help you in your current role and within business in general. So can you share some of your experiences outside that you've had outside of HR that have translated into your current role to help you as a leader?
Yeah, sure. So I was intrigued by life outside HR. This company gave me the chance to follow a commercial path. I wasn't really sure, but in any case, I thought, okay, let's have it a go. And I came to Europe and made many changes at once. And it was really, really tough. Language, country, continent, and function in one go. And it was probably, I tell many colleagues now in HR, it was the best thing I ever did in my career because it gave me a massive business lesson. For 4 years, almost 5 years, I could work outside HR. I could visit customers. I had the chance to learn the ABC of a business, P&L, etc. You know, everything, negotiation, what makes the business tick, and from a different perspective. And I realized after a few years that it gave me a lot, really, to do my job back in HR significantly better. I am now sometimes even criticized by some people because I don't always follow the HR processes. Because I'm not, I introduce myself sometimes as a non-typical HR person. I think it was a significant change for me, and that's something I recommend to everybody in HR, to go outside for a few years. If you feel like coming back to HR, do it. That's great. If you follow a different path in supply chain, in finance, in a commercial arena, great. I mean that's your future. So take that step.
Fantastic. And so what was the role you took outside of HR, and what were some of the learnings that you took away from that role?
I moved to brand proposition manager, if I'm not mistaken, and then I overtook 2 or 3 different roles within marketing and sales. I had the chance to visit customers, to visit suppliers, and that's probably the one thing that now looking back, I realized I had not done before in HR, just to be much more business conscious, to understand the importance of customers, to understand the role of suppliers, and also to see HR from another function. So to critique my own function working outside HR, and to realize that sometimes in HR we believe our own crap, if I may, excuse my language.
That's fine.
We really believe many of our stories, and when you hear some of these stories from outside HR, you really understand that some of the things that we do not make sense, and we should try to be always, as much as possible, and it's impossible, right, to be 100%, but as much as we can, adding value to the business. And a colleague of mine sometimes says something that I believe is fully right. Of everything that we do, 30% is something that is adding value and is noticed by the business. 30%, it's adding value somehow, but people don't tell because you cannot see. We pay salaries and people take it for granted. And 30% is just a waste of time for us and for them. So we should try to move the needle and really try, if as much as we can, to add value in almost everything we can. And you learn that much more when you work outside HR.
Mm. What were some of those common perceptions, Pablo? When you said you're looking at HR from the outside or from a different perspective, what were some of those misconceptions or some of those perspectives that you were quite surprised at, or when you looked at it from that new role, what was the view on HR?
For example, sometimes it's not even the what, but the how. So, we go to visit clients, internal clients, I mean, sometimes, like, we go to a plant, a manufacturing plant, or to a region or to a country group. And sometimes we come with our succession plan. We're very eager to talk about succession, and we display in a screen our little whatever Excel or 9-box matrix, or whatever tool we use, depending how advanced the company is. And that's the beginning of the end. I now understand. But when we start talking about the performance of the plant, and how are these people doing, the production manager, how is he doing, or how is she doing, for example, and then you get into a conversation about the business and how are things going. Eventually, you jump into succession, but you enter the conversation through a business angle, not with the classic 9-box matrix that we manage in HR. Eventually, you get to the same conversation, but the perception from the other end is much more positive because you are actually talking business and you are discussing about the performance. You are not seen as working in isolation from the business. You are part of the business.
Mm-hmm.
If you see what I mean. And I am fully against this classic name that we give ourselves when we say that I am the HR business partner. What on earth that mean?
Why do you need to define it separately from everyone else? Is that what you mean?
It's almost like you
You're
say
separating yourself,
you,
basically.
you are not in the business, but you are partner in the business. But you're
Yeah,
not in the business,
exactly.
so you
Yeah.
need to make an effort to partner. And we are the business. We
Why do you need to be a business partner?
exactly. And
Yeah, I like that.
the way I see myself already for some years is like this, as follows. I think of myself as a business leader who happens to represent HR, and that's how I introduce myself, and that's how I try to behave in meetings, for example, in our weekly or monthly meetings, asking questions about customers and getting my hands dirty on topics that traditionally, at least myself in the past, I would not get into. Because I am eager to learn, and I want to ask and I want to challenge some assumptions. And I expect the same from the finance guy, talking about people and talking about commercial. And I expect the same about the lawyer, talking about whatever topic. We should all be representing the business and pushing for the business to improve, but we happen to be placed representing different functions, and
Yeah.
that's all. But we don't work in isolation. So there should not be an HR strategy in a way. There should be one business strategy, and HR and finance and all of us are pushing from different angles to achieve that business strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the simple learnings that I got
I don't
from.
think they're simple, Pablo. I think they're very profound, if I'm honest.
I don't know. I mean, over time, and also with certain age and 3 children, also this becomes clearer. But I can tell you, I can give you an example that happened very recently. We were discussing in one of our manufacturing plants. It was a heated conversation with 80 people or so, and there were a couple of union representatives. And we were just talking about future investments and this and that. I mean, not related to people necessarily, or not directly related to people. And at the end of the meeting, the union rep, in front of everybody else, says, wow, I mean, you are the first HR person that I hear speaking business in my life, he said. And
Wow.
I told him a bit ironically. I told him, "You are the first HR, you are the first union representative who speaks positively about an HR person." So, touche. I like the comment, but not too much. But
Yeah.
it was a nice learning. At least it was a confirmation that he saw, or the people saw me like that, and it's better than a bonus when you get this kind of comment.
No, of course. And that was what I was thinking in the back of my mind. To let everyone know, why did you come back to HR? And also, what was the reaction from the other leaders that you came back with this new approach as, I am a business leader, not a HR partner, with that new mentality, that new way of working? What was the reaction from your team? And also, why did you come back to HR?
So, okay, one by one. I came back to HR because I was really missing my passion. My passion is people, is to work with people, and to help people, and to develop people, and to coach, and and everything that has to do with people. So I was really missing that, and I had the chance to come back to HR in another company after I did 4 years in marketing and sales, and after finishing an MBA. And I took the opportunity. I was invited to go back to Latin America and follow a commercial path, and I consciously decided to come back to HR. And I'm very happy I did it, because I am enjoying my job a lot. And when I came back to HR, I did not introduce myself as I'm saying now. I'm a business leader who happens to represent HR. No, not at all. I think that understanding of the role I play in the business and the awareness grew over time. I can now say that. And by the way, inside the company, of course, I talk about this, but I'm maybe a little bit more humble,
No,
because
of
also,
course. I know you're not going around the office telling everyone that.
no, of course, but you can create the opposite effect if you go with the flag, talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
So slowly but surely, I realized that I was getting much more involved in business related topics. And I was trying to see, okay, how can I add value from a HR perspective on these business topics, and what is important for the business? How can we make a contribution from HR? What can we stop doing that is not adding any value? How can we simplify our work to add more value to HR? And now looking back, that's what I have been doing and growing into over the last almost 15 years since I came back to HR.
How has that role changed then for you personally from how it was before to how people in the leadership team, or even in the business in general, work with you and the team? Now you're working with from a different perspective. What's the feedback being from the leaders? Are they finding it very much refreshing, and they're happy that they hoped everyone would approach it like this, or were there some pushback to say you're HR, Pablo, stick to HR? What was the
No.
what's
On the contrary, I think I can tell you what I perceive. I'm not sure this is something that everybody think, but my perception is that they see me as one and the same, meaning they can talk to me about whatever. It's not only people-related topics. I have been invited already a few times to visit suppliers and to visit customers. I have been there with them. We go next week. We fly to a couple of places, and in between manufacturing plants, we're going to visit a supplier of one of our key components in the plant. And I'm coming, and people are not even asking me, why are you coming? You're HR. They are just inviting me as if I was, leading one of the other functions, or leading whatever procurement, or leading a country. And I feel comfortable playing that role, and I think that's also something that they welcome.
Yeah, of course.
At
So
least no one is telling me otherwise.
they're like, oh God, we've got to take Pablo again.
Yes.
Yeah. So how has that changed the way you operate as a team then, in terms of how you approach challenges, transformation, culture, etc.? Now you're working at it from a different perspective. How has that changed the way you operate? How has it changed the way you operate the team?
Yeah, I would say I think it's right now much more pragmatic and business orientated. I like I said before, I don't normally come with a classic HR processes or tools. Um, we had, for example, a workshop on. I can tell you examples on how to master the matrix. We had a workshop with the leadership team here in Europe. We are part of a matrix, like many global organizations, and you have the functions and the regions, etc. And we got a lot of material from colleagues at the corporate level, and we tailored everything. And basically, we cut almost all the theory and make it practical, pragmatic, concrete, so that we could have good business discussions around what does it mean to work in a matrix. What can we do different? What can we do better? But there was not a lot of theory, for example, not a lot of
Yes.
models or concepts, just a few to substantiate a few points or to emphasize a few messages or behaviors. But I would say in the past, I would have done it 70% theory and a little bit of concrete business stuff. And this time is almost the other way around. This is a change I can see. And this is my approach right now within HR.
It's so much more valuable, both for the people in the room, but also for the business, because then you're focusing on the execution of that and the delivery, as opposed to, well, okay, we've had a meeting about the theory. Now, do you have to have another meeting about what you've already hopefully you've already discussed in your meeting that you already had? So it makes complete sense to have it from that perspective. What about your team? Was there a big mindset shift that needed to take place for them to say, you guys are now part of the business as opposed to HR? Is there any, did you have to do a lot of work with the team around that, or did you just hire the right people with the right mindset?
When we all, as a team, when we all think in terms of a business and what makes sense for the business, slowly but surely we all become much more aware of the ins and outs of the business and what makes the business tick.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I had to do a lot of work. I think everybody is getting into this mood in a natural way.
They probably wanted it, right? They
Some
probably
more than,
wanted it. They're
yeah,
probably hungry for it in the first place.
yeah. I mean, this is a new team for me. I just joined another company, a different company, 1.5 years ago, and I think this view was welcomed, was well received, and I always tell everybody in my team to do a few basic things. Go out 2-3 times a year. Go out and learn from others, other HR colleagues. Network. Learn from the market. Secondly, always visit manufacturing plants. Go to the countries. Leave the headquarters as much as you can. Just be out there, and always start conversations from a business perspective. I mean, anything you do, start talking about the business. You need to like it. You need to embrace it. You need to also sometimes get out of your comfort zone, because we always try to go back to our known models and frameworks and process and tools that we manage in HR, and that's okay. But this requires a little bit of additional vocabulary, additional interest as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think eventually this pays off, and people in HR and outside HR receive this very well. This is
Yeah.
at least my experience so far, Chris.
Yeah, we should get to the point where it's not that HR is not spoken about as something separate from the organization. It's just part of the business. That's it. It shouldn't. I love the point you made about the business partner, by the way. And I thought that for some time, because I always found it quite silly that there's a business partner brand behind it. I'm like, well, there doesn't need to be that. They're part of the business. Doesn't need to be a partner.
So imagine this. Have you ever heard someone saying, I am the marketing business
Business
partner?
partner. Yeah.
I am the marketing manager. So
Yeah,
why
I know. Yeah,
call
I know.
ourselves HR business partner? No, I'm the HR manager, or I'm
Yeah.
the HR whatever, or I'm just
Mm-hmm.
I
It
am
seems quite weird when you put it that way. It's just Very strange. Just out of curiosity, Pablo, I was wondering if for yourself personally, during your whole journey that you've been through different organizations, what's been the most sort of difficult decision you've had to make along that journey?
About to set up my own business, and I wanted to focus more based on what I said before. I really wanted to focus fully on what I think adds value to a business, and I wanted to focus on leadership related topics,
Hmm.
with boards or executive committees, etc. Senior teams. I have done a little bit of that in the past and within companies, and I thought, okay, maybe I can do this for a living. And I had almost set up my own business, a website and stuff. And it's a very crowded market
Mm,
because many people are doing that.
definitely, it definitely
But
is.
I really felt like going there, and I was about to just to press a button and launch, and I was tempted by OI. And I'm here again in a corporate kind of environment, um, trying to cut all the admin possible and focus on what really matters to the business. And it was a difficult decision.
Hmm.
To your question, it was difficult because also this implied moving countries and relocating the family again from the Netherlands to Switzerland and starting all again, all over again in another company
Mm,
with a new team, trying to make your own space, and
yeah.
that was not an easy decision. But we are very happy now in Switzerland.
Sure. And I can certainly relate to how hard that was because I I had a 10-year career in an organization, and making a decision to step away and start this company was the hardest decision. Probably, yeah,
I can
the
imagine.
hardest decision I've ever had to make. Um, as well. It's very
Yeah,
tough. It's
yeah, I
very
can imagine. But you
it's
need to follow. You need to follow also your instinct and your heart.
mm.
And if it feels okay, if you believe you are going to enjoy it, most likely you are going to do a good job.
What about OI made that a yes then?
Oh, okay. A few things. I fell in love with the product. Number one, the only sustainable packaging on earth, glass, is very appealing. And coming from high technology to something so simple, like a bottle in a way, or a jar for olives, seems to be a little bit, wow, okay, this is too simple. But actually, I fell in love with the product and the prospect of glass in our planet nowadays, with all the sentiment, or the negative sentiment around PET and plastic, and what glass can bring in terms of packaging in the future. So product number one. Secondly, I liked a lot the people I met. Extremely warm and genuine people who want to make a difference in the way people are dealt with, and people are treated within the company. So I liked a lot the people, and the content of the job I also love.
Hmm.
Transforming HR, taking HR from something quite basic to something much more elaborated, and always with the business in mind. In a 3 to 5 year journey, I love the challenge, and because of those three reasons, we said yes. And of course, this is a very interesting family discussion, because relocating a family is not something that you do every day. But also,
Sure.
of course, Switzerland is not a place where we are going to suffer too much in terms of outdoor sports, etc. For the children, this was a big plus. And the fact that the family can learn another language, the children particularly can learn a third or a fourth language at such a young age, was a cherry on top of the cake, if you want, on top of the ice cream. So all the conditions were set up for me to say yes to this job, and for us to move as a family to Switzerland.
Mm. Amazing. Well, I'm really happy, and I think based on what you've told me in our conversation before, it is definitely a perfect fit in terms of what you want to achieve as a leader yourself, and how and it seems like you've got a perfect set of partners around you as well in the organization that want to help you achieve that. So that's pretty amazing. Not many leaders have that, Pablo, that I speak to as well. So it seems it all worked out for the best for everyone there.
Time will tell. So far, so good.
Well, year and a half in, right? Is that right?
Yeah,
So
1 year and a little.
going well so far. So let's make it go. Before we wrap up, Pablo, we have a quick fire round where I ask 5 questions to every single guest that comes on the show, and you have no longer than 30 seconds to give us some amazing answers. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
What was the number one thing that was holding you back from becoming a senior HR practitioner?
You said it before. I think it was fear of failure, and jump into the pool, not knowing how deep the water will be. I would say, was a fear I had, and having fear to say no and confront people, I would say has been a hurdle in the past. Yes.
Fantastic. And I'm glad you pointed that out, and most people do. And you mentioned a small point there at the end, which I want to highlight, is the confrontation part. I think it's very important having the confidence to confront people and other leaders in the organization where you believe that this is something that is right, and to push back is very important, right? Would you agree?
Yeah,
For
fully,
leaders. Yeah.
fully agree.
Yeah, because there's too many times where HR goes quiet and they don't have their voice because they're afraid of consequences or whatever it may be. But the successful leaders that I speak to are willing to put their job on the line and to be the voice. So it takes a lot of confidence and courage to do that. So it's
It
great.
takes courage, yes.
What's the best piece of business advice you received?
Well, I mean, maybe I go back in circles, but I remember that one day someone told me before I had changed roles, I moved to another function. Someone told me, "Yeah, all this sounds very good, Pablo, but this is too much HR. You need to look at things from a different angle." And that was, I still remember. This is many years ago, back in Buenos Aires, and I still remember. This was a very good advice to me. Don't stick to your function and give me the classic functional. And this can apply to any function, not just to HR. It was not advice. It was more like like a nasty comment that this guy made. But I took it in the chin, and I think it was a fantastic comment at that moment in my career.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's what you need to hear, right? And the way what you took away from it, the fact that you still resonates with you now it's great.
Yeah.
So, could you recommend a book to our audience that you would recommend? What's one book could you recommend to our audience, and why? It doesn't have to be HR related.
No, I can tell you a book I'm reading now, which I am really amazed. The name of the book is Sapiens: A Short History of Humankind. It's amazing. I am about to finish the book, and it's probably one of the best books I have ever read. It describes who we are and where do we come from and why are we doing the stupid things that we do nowadays, from the cave ages to the Homo sapiens,
Mm-hmm.
etc. It's just amazing. I recommend this book to everyone.
Fantastic. I'll certainly link that in the description for everyone. And could you share some internet resources that you use for your own development or to stay up to date with current events?
I normally read The Economist, to be honest. This is my source of business connection.
That's your main one.
And yeah, the main one. And I collect a magazine already for many years. It's also from The Economist. It's The Future in the Coming Year. It is normally published at this time of the year, and it gives you all the predictions and for big global forecast for the following year. And normally they get it pretty right. So I recommend that.
And then lastly, what's one thing about your business that you're most excited about?
Oh, I think I said it before. I am really excited about the future of glass. And this not only applies to our business, but the glass industry as a whole. The sustainability aspect of what we do is something that I think the younger generations are crying for, because they want a less polluted world. And I think glass, in that sense, being 100% sustainable and recyclable, is something that will offer many of the things in the packaging industry, at least, many of the things that that we need. So I'm very, very happy about the prospect of our industry and, of course, our own business.
Fantastic. Well, look, Pablo, I really appreciate you taking the time out to share your experience and insights with our listeners. I know they'll be a lot better off for it. So thank you for that. Before we wrap up, no problem. Before we wrap up, if there's one parting piece of guidance you can give to all of the HR leaders out there that are on their journey, sort of what would that be? And also, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you if they have any questions or want to reach out?
To get in touch with me, LinkedIn, of course. And the advice probably is, again, I sound like a broken record, but just stop. We need to stop thinking in terms of HR and get into the business. Go through the pain of getting into a bit of the unknown and just learn other things. Spend a full day, spend a full week in a manufacturing plant. Where get dirty, visit customers, visit suppliers. Leave the HR function. Leave the HR function for a few days. Leave the HR function for a few years.
Yeah.
And that will significantly help you for your career.
Well, look, guys, as always, head over to hrleaders.com. There you'll find the show notes on the episode. Everything we've been talking about, everything that Pablo's mentioned will be in the show notes on the website, and a link to all of the episodes and all of the different platforms will be there. Pablo, thank you again for taking the time to join us, and I wish you all the best until we next speak.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, everybody. All the best.
Thanks.